Layla, once the kids are found, like I said.
Yeah.
Whether we get them at the table eating ice cream, which I don't think is ever going to happen, I think we're going to get bones in a box.
Let's face it, this guy proved long ago how cold-hearted and callous he is. He's never given a damn about Lily and Jack. He started making that part of his narrative partway through his first tour of YouTube, because of course he realised he would sell his stories way better if people thought that he actually did care about Lily and Jack. This is the guy that constantly refers to them as those kids and comes out with lines like that one about them coming back as bones in a box. Now, I realise that in the beginning there were channels who wanted to at least hear what he had to say, given his alleged connection to Malaya's family. And they gave him a chance until it became clear that he was nothing but a grifting liar who could not keep his story straight. Most channels have actually blocked him now, so he can't even comment on their videos, except when he comes in his sock accounts, which we know that he has. But, it seems like every case that happens, there is always that one content creator who is either just extremely inexperienced or is just a grifter who really doesn't give a damn about the victims, but is in it for the click value. And here we get a woman who, up until when Lily and Jack went missing, was reporting on politics. She claims that she is a journalist, but I would like it if someone could actually send me a link to some of her journalism, because I have not been able to find it. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but I've not found it. I'm not a fan. I think she showed us what sort of content creator she was when she put that first fake witness sighting out. Anyone who applied a little bit of logic would be able to tell that it was somebody get after attention, and yet she either didn't realise that or just decided it was worth a few clicks and published it. And then more recently we get another one doing the same. I think there was another one in between. And now we get this toolbox crap. And boy, do I have a lot to say about this. Now, before I jump into this, I do want to first of all apologise. I had planned on doing this as a live stream this morning, but things just didn't quite work out that way, so I'm doing it as a video instead tonight. Hopefully I'll do a live stream tomorrow morning. I can't give any guarantees right now. I also, once again, want to just thank those people who've been super supportive and doing the Buy Me a Coffee, doing the super thanks and super chats. And to the person on Facebook who seems to think that she is above everybody else, I just want to point out that me thanking people for supporting my channel is not grifting. It is common, basic manners. It is something that most of us are taught from a very, very early age. That it is manners to say thank you when people help you out. I'm sorry that you never learnt that. On a lighter note, I just have to share this with you because I find it absolutely hilarious. And I think I need your input to figure out exactly what it would look like. Now, the posts in question have been removed by the administrators on Facebook, but there was a lot of drama simply because someone shared my most recent videos on Facebook, and that Anita woman came out just completely losing the plot. But she made claims that I have made death threats against her. What I'm curious about is, how does a person in Australia make credible death threats against someone living in Canada? Because it would be really, really hard. At the end of the day, our crocodiles aren't that good swimmers. And sure, our magpies can be pretty aggressive in swooping season, but it would take a lot for a magpie to somehow make its way from Australia all the way to Canada. So I'm just wondering if anyone can enlighten me as to what sort of death threats a person could possibly make to someone all the way over on the other side of the world. Because to me, this is just comical. I should probably also point out that making accusations like that against somebody is also slanderous. So she's lucky that I can't be bothered taking legal action because, yeah, I might be over on the other side of the world, but I can still take action in Canadian courts. But I've got better things to do with my time than waste time on someone who is just desperate for attention. So let's get back to Derwood and this ridiculous toolbox story. Now, ridiculous? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows with this guy, because there's always a little bit of truth in the things he's saying, and we know that at this point, what he's coming out with now is him trying to make fun of people, but honestly, I think there's a bit more going on here, and I will discuss that at the end of this video. By now, most of you have caught this live stream that this foggy woman did a little while ago. I think it was about the 5th of March, where she had Derwood on and was doing an interview with him. If you're a content creator, you were probably blocked from her channel on TikTok until this was dropped onto YouTube, because she's petty like that, and I believe that she's got pretty much every content creator blocked on TikTok. But in case you missed it, I'm going to play that audio again. Not the full live stream, obviously, just the audio of him talking about this toolbox. And, of course, for those of us who've heard it, this will act as a refresher so we know exactly what was said in the first instance. I'm not going to interrupt this first bit of audio because, obviously, I've done a rather lengthy video on this already. So the link for that video will be in the description for this one, so that if you haven't seen it, you can go and watch the whole thing in full. Anyway, let's just get into it.
There's another story you shared with me, actually, about a toolbox.
Yep.
And the possibility, the belief at one point that there could be something inside of that toolbox that could be relevant to the investigation.
Yep. Well, okay, I'm gonna state something. There's a lawyer involved. Well, there's a few lawyers involved in this, but there's one lawyer involved in this, and they had a theory built that there was a toolbox involved, and that there was possibly a wrench in this toolbox that was used to injure and kill the kids. I ended up in possession of that toolbox, and when this theory was held back on me for a while because the lawyer was actually fishing me for information, and I knew it, but that was all right. I don't mind that, because if I believe if you're telling the truth, well, it's not going to hurt you. Tell the truth. So I was telling this lawyer the truth and passing information back and forth, and the lawyer told me some things that, as far as I'm concerned, the lawyer shouldn't have been saying. But anyway, that's all right. Confidential information it was supposed to be. So this theory got presented that this toolbox was used. There was a tool in this toolbox used to kill those kids. So I asked the lawyer, I hope you reported this to a major crimes then, if that's the case, because I knew it wasn't true. Just long story short, personal experience, being there, seeing what I saw, knowing what I know, I knew it was not true. Now, this was only a few weeks ago. I called John Donaldson. John Donaldson and I are getting along better, far better than the other guys did. He talks wisely, and he's sensible and
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Who is he?
He is the lead investigator now for the Jack and Lily case, of major crimes in Bible Hill. And so I said, I'm going to nip this. I asked the lawyer if this was presented to the cops as a tip, if this information And they said, no. And I said, why? You're a lawyer. Why in the hell would you not tell the cops this then? And believe it or not, her theory partly involved me. And that's why I knew it was bullshit. So that's all right. I said, I'm going to squash this right here. So I called John Donaldson. I said, John, I got a lawyer. I said, presenting this theory to me. And I told him the name. I told he was surprised. He said, you're not going to name that lawyer. I certainly am. I said, here's the name. I said, here's exactly everything they're saying. And I said, I have that toolbox in my possession. I know exactly where it is. I said, now, do you want it? Because it's under about 3 feet of snow right now. And I said, if you want it, I'll put a pair of gloves on and dig it out for you so that I don't, if there is evidence in it, like if there is, what do you call it, blood or anything like that, DNA in it, I don't want to interfere with it, so I'll make sure I put gloves, if you want me to do that. I said, or if you don't, you come here. And I said, you and I'll go and I'll help you take it out, get it out from underneath snowbank, and I want you to have it. Now, do you know what he said to me?
What?
He said, don't bother. I said, why? He said, I know that's all bullshit anyway. I know that theory's bullshit anyway. So I still got the toolbox. The toolbox is still under about 3 feet of snow.
Okay, so I want to talk about what's going on here first. For starters, this content creator is the one who brought this up. This is something none of us had heard of. Well, I hadn't heard of it, but then I don't have any sort of conversations with Derwood because I don't want to have anything to do with the guy. AB claims that, everybody knew about this toolbox, but nobody was talking about it. Sure. He was just feeling PO'd because she booted him from her live stream on TikTok before he even had a chance to screen record any of it. And then I screen recorded it all, and he was a bit sour over the fact that I did manage to do that, even though he got booted out and he didn't. So I take what he says with a grain of salt in relation to anything to do with this live stream. But anyway, this content creator was the one that brought it up. She made it part of the conversation in her live stream. That says to me one of two things. Either she thought there might have been some credibility to the story, or she was in this for the clicks and she really doesn't give a rat's ass about what sort of fake information she is helping to spread. But the thing is, there's some red flags here. And I'm just going to go through the dot points that stand out to me. And like I said, I've gone into this in depth in another video, so I'm not going to go too far. But she's the one here who claimed that the toolbox could be relevant to the investigation. So she's the one who's beginning to give credibility to this story in the first place. He then turns around and he's saying, well, this is a theory that was put forward by a lawyer, and we know he's referring to Darlene. And he goes on about there being this hypothetical wrench that was hypothetically used to injure and kill the kids. And again, he says this in this callous, cold way that only Derwood can, showing that to him, the kids mean nothing. He doesn't even remember their names, Lily Sullivan and Jack Sullivan. They're not real people to him. They're just kids, or those kids. He claims occasionally that he cares, but that's only because he suddenly remembers that people have criticised him for being so cold and callous and uncaring. But it's Derwood himself who takes the situation from being a hypothetical discussion to something real. He says he has the toolbox in his possession. So this toolbox that might have existed and might have had a tool in it that might have been used to injure the children, straight away it is suddenly something that is real. He has it. So the simple fact here is that Derwood is admitting that he has something at his place that belongs to Daniel, that Daniel left at his place sometime after the children went missing, and that is hidden under a pile of snow. He literally says it is buried under a pile of snow. He's admitting here that he has been hiding something that is potentially evidence in an investigation. He knows that people are looking very, very closely at Daniel in terms of what happened to Lily and Jack. He's admitting that it is a little bit suspicious that this toolbox is at his place. He might not say that in as many words, but that is what he is trying to convey here in this conversation. But what you see happening here is a change of pace in the way he's telling his narrative. So it starts off as, hey, you know what, there's this toolbox that might have something to do with the case, and guess what, I've got this toolbox. And clearly, I don't know if he was reading people's comments in the live stream or if his brain just kicked in and he suddenly realised that he was bragging about possibly withholding evidence. So then he comes out with this story of contacting one of the investigators and saying, hey, you can come and get it. Look, or if you can't come and get it, I'll get it out and I'll make sure I put gloves on so I'm not damaging anything and, you know, not touching anything that could potentially be evidence. And then he's like, but, you know, the detective said to me, well, we know it's all BS. When you listen to the way he's talking, this is pure deflection. There is no way that if someone contacted one of the detectives that was working on this case and said, I have a toolbox here at my place. I've not opened it, but this toolbox actually belongs to Daniel Martel, and he brought it here and he left it here after the children went missing. Take away all the speculation, even just that simple basic fact, which is what Derwood is telling us. That is a simple fact. The simple fact is that, according to Derwood, Daniel took a toolbox to his place. He claims this toolbox belongs to Daniel, and that he left this toolbox at his place after the children went missing. Now that sounds like someone trying to hide evidence. So, had he actually gone to the RCMP and told them this, I find it highly unlikely that they're going to say, yeah, that story's just BS, we don't want it, we're not interested. So either he's not gone to them at all, or he's gone to them with some sort of BS story trying to cover his arse, which I think is highly unlikely, because if you go back and listen to the rest of his audio from early on in this case, all this guy does is bitch and moan about the RCMP, and he talks about how he believes that they've botched the case. He basically talks about them like they're a bunch of morons and he wouldn't give them the time of day. Now he's had this sudden about face because he's got so much criticism from people who've seen how much of a lowlife he is. So now he's pretending that he's buddies with the RCMP. That's complete utter BS. This guy made it extremely clear in those early interviews, those times that he was speaking with Sonny and with Dolly, that he had no respect for the RCMP and that he would not go and talk to them about anything. You just have to go look on his Facebook page to see how much hatred this guy has for any form of authority. So I think it would be fair to say that he has not contacted the RCMP, that he has basically looked at the comments that people were making in her chat, in her live stream, and responded to that, or either that or he's thought about it as he was telling it and realised that he probably needed to do a bit of deflection there. Or maybe the deflection is because he didn't want people to hear this toolbox story because it was going to incriminate him. And she caught him unprepared by talking about it, and he's just blurted out his story and then realised that if he didn't shut things down, people were going to contact RCMP themselves and say, this story is a huge red flag and someone needs to take a look at it. There is absolutely nothing trustworthy about this guy, full stop, end of story. So, whatever he is doing here, he is doing so with an agenda. Of course, the thing we don't know here is the timing of when this story first occurred, because we know he had that falling out with Janie and Daniel. So is it likely that he was actually hiding this toolbox for Daniel, and then when he had a falling out with Daniel, he blabbed it to this foggy woman because he was really, really PO'd at Daniel and Janie at one point there. So did he blab it to this foggy woman because he was PO'd with Daniel, and now he's trying to backtrack because he's realised that it actually incriminates him by admitting that he's been hanging on to evidence for all this time. He did specifically say that, this conversation with Darling, this happened a few weeks ago. Well, sounds to me that was about the time that him and Janie and Daniel had that big argument where Daniel was apparently too scared to even go out into the driveway, and Derwood is having this big shouting match with him and Janie because Janie had allegedly told him and Belinda that she heard someone shushing children out in the driveway on the Friday morning, and now she's reneging on that, saying, no, I didn't hear that. So the timing of it could well be a case of him intentionally leaking the information about the toolbox to try and get Daniel into trouble. And then somewhere along the line he's realised that it's going to get him into trouble too. And he's already in enough hot water for essentially impeding an investigation. And I think he's probably realised this could wind him up in jail. So you've probably heard this audio from this foggy woman, but I'm going to play it. I have edited out as much of her voice as I can because, to be quite honest, it bugs me the way she talks about this case like it's a fiction story, like she's telling some sort of a fan fiction or something. Anyway, so let's listen to this audio.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the infamous Derwood O'Grady.
I just want to say here, I don't know who is more despicable here. Him for making a mockery of this case with the way he's laughing about this situation, or her for actually airing this in the first place.
A lady from Hidden in the Fog channel. Her name is Susan Lowe. And she's been very truthful and helpful with me, and I've been as truthful and helpful with her as I can back. We've both been respectful to each other, which means a lot. And she asked me if I would send her pictures or video of the famous, the mysterious, the toolbox. So anyway, here it is.
Okay, first of all, this guy seems to think he's amusing. But I just want to point out also, this is not a natural tone for him. This is a put-on. Is this just him trying to sound like he's making fun of people? Or is this a put-on because he's trying to do an act here? Notice when he says toolbox that he sounds like a 13-year-old whose voice is just about to break. I don't think it's a coincidence that this happens when he says toolbox. We have to pay attention to these sort of things. It is like when someone is giving you a narrative and you get pauses throughout the narrative, you know that it's going to be BS. It's like him with his stutter when he's telling a story, and you know he stutters on things that are significant, but you also know that as part of that, he's trying to change the story a little bit, but it's the words that he gets caught up on where he stutters. So I don't think we should ignore the fact that his voice sounds like it's breaking when he says toolbox.
It's about 2.5 feet wide. It's just a rusty old toolbox. I dug it out of the snowbank where Daniel Martel chucked it at Foxbrook.
I'm just wondering if anyone believes that that was actually pulled out of a snowbank. It certainly wasn't pulled out at the time that he made that video, because it's not even remotely wet. But not only that, there's two things that if we zoom in and look at it that show us there's no way this was in a snowbank. First of all, you've got all these loose particles of rust sitting on the top of it. If this was in a snowbank and he pulled it out, then that top would have been covered in snow. By the time the snow melted and came off, all those loose particles would have gone with the snow. But also, there is that spot there where there is a chip out of the paint or whatever it is. If that was in a snowbank, that would not look like that, because from sitting in a snowbank throughout winter, how would that not end up rusted out? This is a toolbox that has been sitting in the back of a shed somewhere. This has got nothing to do with Daniel, as far as I'm concerned. He has said there was a toolbox. I don't believe this is the toolbox. This guy is clearly in this up to his eyeballs, and he thinks people are going to believe this BS from him. When I look at this, the only two scenarios I can see from this is that A, there was never a toolbox and he made that whole story up, or B, there was a toolbox, which he seems to have admitted that there was, going, I have that toolbox, making it go from hypothetical to real. If there was ever a toolbox, this is not it. Or if this is it, it has certainly not been sitting under a snowbank for all of winter.
I haven't opened it yet, but we'll do that right now. Here we go. Oh, it's stuck. All right.
Funny how there's no seal on that toolbox, but everything inside is perfectly dry and perfectly clean. I would have thought, even with having a lip on the lid like that, you're still going to get water coming in where the hinges are. You are still going to get some seepage into that toolbox when it is sitting inside a snowbank for 6 months or however long it's been allegedly sitting inside a snowbank. And then this tool bangs the toolbox and then opens it really, really easily and claims that that is the toolbox being stuck. It was a distinctive noise of someone hitting that toolbox. You could hear the bang. It wasn't it being stuck. It was it being hit. And then he opened it so easily. Now, had that been under a snowbank for all that time, the hinges would have rusted. It would not open so easily like that. There are so many areas where this toolbox should be rusted. The rivets that connect the hinges to the toolbox should have started rusting, meaning that there would have been liquid getting in that location, because you've got your two different metals. Even if it is similar metals, they're both going to have different quantities of metals. So you are going to get a reaction there. That is Amira and Mouse wrestling in the background, if you can hear those weird noises. That is not me grunting like a pig. This is all just a big act from Derwood. I mean, even with him doing the banging on it and pretending that it was stuck, did anybody see the toolbox actually move in any way when he claimed it was stuck? Because if you have a toolbox and the lid is stuck, then you are going to see movement in that toolbox as you pry the lid off. It is not just going to sit there, just not moving at all. Okay, I apologise. I possibly should have re-recorded that with the crazy noises going on in the background. but I kind of just want to push on and get this done and dusted. Now, the other thing that stands out to me here is the size of the toolbox. He claims it's 2.5 foot wide, which by my calculations is about 76 centimetres wide. Well, it's definitely not that wide. Lengthwise, I would be surprised if it was that long also. Yeah, it's not a tiny, tiny toolbox, but it's also not 76 centimetres wide or 2.5 foot wide. And what stands out to me about that is that a toolbox that size is not something that you would just dump under a bank somewhere, because it's not going to take up a lot of space. This is a property that has multiple sheds on it, and yet he claims, oh, you know, this is where Daniel chucked it. Well, I'll come back to that also after we've finished listening to the audio. But honestly, when he was speaking to her about this toolbox being under 3 foot of snow, under this bank of snow, what I was visualising was the sort of toolbox that you would see sitting on the back of someone's ute or truck, as you would call them. You know, one of those ones that is as wide as the vehicle, that is fairly deep and fairly heavy, hence the reason it would be chucked on the ground outside as opposed to carried into a shed and put somewhere, because it is bulky. That toolbox is not something that is big and bulky. Now, obviously, that's just my opinion, but none of this seems to really ring true to me.
Oh, look at this. Oh, my Lord. What an arrangement.
That's a junk toolbox. That's an old man junk toolbox, where you shove in things that you're not really using pretty much ever. I mean, seriously, pop rivet guns. How often do you use them? I think for me, in the last 10 years, I've used one probably 2 or 3 times, if that. This is all a big joke for him. He seems to have forgotten that the allegations he's making is that something in that toolbox was used to kill the children, and it's just one big hilarious joke. This guy is the most disgusting person I have ever come across on the planet.
So why has this toolbox captured so much attention? The story begins with Darren Geddes, a relative of the missing children. During an interview with this channel, Geddes shared an unusual detail about a toolbox that once belonged to Daniel Martel, the man who was the children's stepfather at the time they disappeared. According to Geddes, Martel had traded the toolbox to Geddes' son, Jordan.
This woman is acting like it's story time at the local library and she's reading to all the kiddies. It's not just about the way that she's treating it like it's a fiction story, but her tone of voice makes it sound like she is infantilizing her audience. Okay, for a journalist or a person who claims to be a journalist, her understanding of grammar doesn't seem to be particularly good. She says he traded the toolbox to Geddes' son. When you trade something for something, or you trade it with somebody. You don't trade it to someone. That is saying you gave it to someone. There is a difference. So I'm not sure what she's actually trying to tell us here. Either he gave it to Jordan, or he traded it with something from Jordan. But see, here's the thing. What she's saying here is that he's traded it with Jordan for something, while, according to Dingbat, Daniel just chucked it there into the bank. If he traded it with Jordan, wouldn't there be like a handing it over? And if he's trading it, then it must have been of some worth to Jordan. He must have wanted it for some reason. So what was the trade? And if it was a trade, then why would you trade something that is so insignificant that the person you're trading it with throws it onto the ground somewhere and you don't even touch it? Like, the story just does not add up here. And whether this is just her trying to make it her own little fiction story, so she's embellishing a little bit here and there, or whether this is what Dingbat originally told her, and now he's come out with that different version, I don't know, but something's not adding up here.
On its own, the detail might seem insignificant, but in a case still surrounded by unanswered questions, even the smallest connection can quickly become the focus of speculation.
Look at that. There's a rivet gun, a tire iron, a level. Oh boy. Some nails, another rivet gun, an adjustable crescent wrench, and a pair of pliers, and a couple other hoodads and doodads. Jesus. I'm absolutely sure that the YouTube crime experts will have a lot of analysis to do with this. Mike DeMann will go right crazy when he sees this. So anyway, I don't know what else to tell you, other than this is the famous toolbox.
Does anyone else find that this guy makes them just feel so sick? I am truly looking forward to when it reaches a point where arrests are made in this case. And if this guy is not arrested for obstruction, I am going to have some serious questions that I am going to be asking. Because the amount of meddling he's done in the case, and now he's putting out this story which is either there is truth to it and he's now trying to back down because he's got caught out, or he's doing it because he's just a jerk and he doesn't realise that this is a situation where we have two missing children who are almost certainly deceased and who almost certainly were ended by Daniel. And he thinks it's a big joke. He's making this huge joke about it. And she's encouraging it. Note how she is also trying to minimise it. She refers to it as being even the smallest connection and being the focus of speculation. Well, if this story is true, that this toolbox belonged to Daniel Martel and was left at their property, and they've been sitting on it all this time, that is not the smallest connection. That is something significant. I can't quite figure out her motivation here. Is it that she just is low on IQ points? Or is it that this is just a big game for her? Is this why we had these two or three fake witnesses that were putting out these ridiculous stories? And now we have this because it is just a big game for her. It's all about the clicks and the views. Or is it that she lacks the capacity for logical, critical thinking and is therefore not able to process what is going on with these videos that she's putting out? And yes, maybe some people may think I'm being harsh on this woman, but right now I have no time for her. I have no time for content creators that pull stunts like this. And I'll clarify more on what I'm talking about in just a moment. Because it's not just about her making a mockery of this case.
Among some true crime content creators, rumors began circulating online suggesting that the toolbox might contain evidence connected to the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan.
This woman is unreal. What she is saying here is she's saying that other content creators are responsible for these rumours circulating. She's basically trying to make us look like a bunch of rumour mongers. And while sadly we have seen just that from Mike Darman in the last week, with him sharing all these stories that he got off that Anita woman, can we just acknowledge where this rumour began? In case you missed it at the beginning of this video, I will just read the transcript for you. So this is from her March 5th live stream. She said, "You shared with me actually about a toolbox and the possibility, the belief at some point that there could be something inside that toolbox that could be relevant to the investigation." So where did this rumour start? This rumour started with her. She's just about halfway repeated the same thing here, but instead of admitting that she's the one that came out and said that this could be evidence, she's putting it on all other content creators and saying, you know what, all these content creators are spreading this rumour. This is the height of hypocrisy.
Geddes says when he heard those claims, he responded directly. "I hope that has been reported to the RCMP," he said to one person making that assertion.
She really is treating it like story time at the local library. Blah, 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 blah. He said to one person making that assertion. Okay, she's got her story wrong for starters. Maybe this woman should actually do the intelligent thing and create transcripts of her content so that when she's putting out these videos like this to try and get more clicks and views to make more money out of this story, that she can go and check what it is that was said in the first place, because she's getting her story all twisted here. On one hand, she's accusing content creators of spreading these rumours or beginning these rumours about it being evidence. But then she turns around and says, well, when Dingbat heard about it, he responded directly. So now she's talking about this lawyer telling him that this is a story that, according to Dingbat, she made up the story or came up with the story. So this woman has decided that she wants to attack content creators over a rumour that nobody was talking about until she's the one that started it. And then instead of actually paying attention to what Derwood said in the first place, she's putting it all back on content creators, not actually acknowledging the fact that Derwood said that this came from the lawyer.
But according to Geddes, the matter did not stop there. He says he contacted the RCMP himself and offered to provide the toolbox for forensic testing. His message, he says, was very simple. The box, buried under roughly 3 feet of snow, could be dug out and made available if police wished to examine it. But Geddes says the RCMP's response was clear. They were not interested in the toolbox. Still, while other investigators appear to have no interest in it, other people clearly do. And for that reason, Geddes says he is now offering the toolbox up for auction. Bidding, he says, will begin at $1,000, and any money raised will go toward continuing efforts to search for the answers in the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan, and will be donated to searchers.
This woman needs to be arrested with a lot of them. She is essentially hampering an investigation by going, well, guess what? Since allegedly RCMP aren't interested in it, you can buy it for $1,000. She is essentially condoning someone offering to sell something that they have said could potentially be a significant piece of evidence in a criminal investigation. Honestly, these two are a match made in heaven, because clearly neither of them have very strong morals. These were real children. These were real children who went to school, who played together, who had grandparents who loved them, who had a future. But to her, This is just a big joke. To Darren, Derwood, Dingbat. And trust me, I've got so many more names that I can come up with for him. For him, it's just a big joke also. I am so angry at the pair of these people because they are just utterly disgusting human beings. They are making a mockery of a case involving a 4-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. And they think it's amusing.
And I'm thinking about putting it up for auction. And if somebody wants to start the bids at $1,000, that can be donated to the searchers. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. I'm giving this to Susan Lowe first because she seems like a good, honest person.
A good, honest person like Janie and like Anita, both of whom have been proven to be utter liars. Yes, she clearly shares your same moralistic values, Derwood. But that doesn't make her a good person. And as for this claim that, the money will go towards searches. BS, it'll go towards searching for your next bottle of hooch. There's nothing wrong with, when you're discussing a case, to throw in the occasional humorous comment here and there just to lighten the mood. But what he's doing here, what she's doing here, the pair of them, they are making a mockery of this case. At this point in time, we're looking at the extreme likelihood that these children are deceased. They're making a mockery of their deaths. Now, since, amongst other things, as well as blocking content creators from her TikTok channel, this woman also deletes people's comments if they question her or if she disagrees with them. So I'm going to share some comments that have been screenshotted. I apologise for anyone who may not want me to share their name out there. But I will just point out you have demonstrated that you have better morals than this woman, and certainly better critical thinking skills. Because I think it's important to look at some of these comments because this highlights the depravity of these people. Okay, well, we already know that Farm Girl is pretty brilliant. I'm sure most of you have seen the sort of comments she leaves on my channel, so I have no doubt that she's going to forgive me for sharing her comments here and not hiding her name. So her first comment here is, why is this funny to him? Why is his voice cracking so much? That looks like it spent a long time in the snow. Eye roll. What utter BS. So she clearly sees the same things as me. And I agree with her. It is utter BS. And this thing with his voice cracking, it's bizarre at the very least. And this is her response. Now, this seems to have been deleted since the screenshot was taken, which, like I said, doesn't surprise me. You misunderstand the video content. He's expressing incredulity at content creators building up the toolbox to something it's not, merely to generate content. He's using the toolbox as an example of all the misleading info spun in this case. Oh my gosh. Let's break that up. He's incredulous at content creators building up the toolbox to something it's not. Who did that? She did. She's the one that put the original content out there. She's the one who had this conversation with him in the background and then decided to bring it up on her live stream with the comment that this is potential evidence. And yet she's saying he's incredulous at content creators. He should be incredulous at her. And he built it up himself. You heard the way that he told his story to try and build it up to be some big dramatic story. This is not on content creators. This is on her and on Dingbat. And then the comment, merely to generate content. What did you just do here, Susan? You put out this ridiculous video mocking the death of 2 children to generate content. I'm guessing you're probably disappointed that you only got 500 views or something on this video because you thought you would break the internet with it. But the reality is that most people are disgusted by what you have put out here. Most people decided they would rather wait and hear their preferred content creator discuss it. And this part here is hilarious. He's using the toolbox as an example of all the misleading info spun in this case. Well, where is the origins of a lot of this misleading info? Number 1, Dingbat. Number 2, Daniel. But you know who comes probably a close 3rd or 4th? This woman. How many videos has she put out with fake witnesses? You had this woman claiming that she saw Lily playing on a swing in Regina, but not Jack, I think. And then whatever this latest one was, I don't know what this latest one was because I only got about 3 minutes in and it sounded so tedious that I basically clicked off and went, oh, well, I'll read the transcript later. And then it was just, I was so uninterested because it was such clear BS. So for her to claim that this video is all about making an example of the people who were putting out the false content or misleading info, hello? My gosh, is this woman really that thick? And then her response to this question. So Farm Girl also asked her, did you reach out to the RCMP about the toolbox? And this woman is like, I did not. RCMP do not respond to queries regarding specific tips, evidence, e.g. pink blanket, Cobra could pass, female witness, etc. If Darren states, as he did, that he offered it to RCMP who had no interest, and that is not true, I'm sure we will learn soon enough. So either she is so out of touch that she's not aware of the number of lies that this dingbat has made over the last 10 months, or she's not capable of connecting the dots here and thinking, hey, this guy is a massive liar, he's told so many porkies that I probably shouldn't take him at his word when he claims that he spoke to the RCMP about it, and maybe I should actually touch base with them over it just in case this is something significant that they've not been told about. But no, she doesn't report it. Instead, she puts it up as a video offering for someone to buy it. Hey, I've got some potential evidence here. I'm not going to tell the RCMP about it. I'm going to give you the chance to be the person who buys it. Honestly, I've followed a lot of cases. I've covered a number of cases. The only thing I can think of that would be on par with this, and I'm not sure if I would actually think this is worse, is the content creator who put Madeline Soto's face on merchandise and was selling merchandise with Maddie Soto's face on that merchandise, up until she got a letter from the lawyers of the family saying, you need to stop doing that, that is against the law, aside from being utterly deplorable. But to have something that could potentially be evidence, she doesn't know it, we don't know it, Dingbat is the least reliable person on the planet, and yet what is she doing? She's not going to report it to RCMP. She's not even going to mention it to RCMP. Instead, she's going to put a video out giving people the opportunity to buy it. Is he giving her commission for that? Now, like I said, this woman was she used to do stories on political stuff. She's not someone who is familiar with this true crime genre. Clearly, she's not familiar with how cases are run in the first place, because her comment here is, well, they don't respond to queries regarding specific tips, evidence. No, they're not going to. You give them a tip, they investigate it. They don't owe you anything. They're not going to come back and tell you what eventuated from that tip. So what she's saying here is that, oh, well, she gave them tips before, and then when she asked them how they went with those tips, they didn't tell her, so she's not going to give them any more tips. Now, you guys have seen, or many of you have seen the emails that I've shared where I've sought clarification on things, and they've been extremely helpful. They've given whatever information they can. But I've never contacted them after forwarding a tip that's come from me or from a subscriber that sent a tip to me and said, hey, I just want to know how you went with that, because it's none of my business. But she's not saying here that they don't investigate tips, although she's trying to infer that with her wording. She's saying that they don't respond to queries about those tips. So she's pretty much saying there's nothing in it for her to give this tip to the RCMP, so why bother? Now, one of the emails that I had from the RCMP was in relation to similar allegations that were made by this PI, where she claimed that there were tips that had been given to them that they had not acted on. And the response that I got from that was quite clear, that they act on every single tip that they get. They have to do that. And that from those tips, they had generated even more tasks. But what is she telling us here as well? She's saying this is all about clicks and views for her. She really doesn't care if this is something that could make a difference in the case. All she cares about is getting the views out there. To her, it's about the content. So why should she bother to contact the RCMP? Because she doesn't get anything out of it. They're not going to tell her when she asks about these tips. They're not going to tell her if they've got any leads from it. So why should she bother even putting the tip in the first place? It would take her 30 seconds to share this with the RCMP. No, it's none of her business how they investigate it. So they don't need to respond to queries about the tip. But at the very least, she should have dropped them an email just with a FYI on it and screenshots of the communication between her and Dingbat, or send them the audio if she recorded audio of him telling her this. Or if she's not done it up until the point when she did that live stream, send them the link for the live stream with a timestamp. But she's showing us here that that's not important to her. This other comment I wanted to point out is this person said Darren Geddes needs to be charged with interfering with a missing persons case as well as being a public nuisance. You are assisting him, allowing him to go around spruiking a toolbox. Please cut all ties with this idiot. The RCMP wouldn't trust anything in that box as any form of evidence. Well, they wouldn't now, that's for sure. Either would I. I mean, it sure as hell wouldn't be admissible. But at the very least, someone needs to have at least spoken to them about it. And the thing is, with her, rather than actually talking to the RCMP about it, but instead requesting for him to make a video, she has also essentially helped tamper with evidence. Because the moment he opened that toolbox, it's all screwed. It now has his fingerprints, his DNA all over it. If he touched anything inside that toolbox, would be inadmissible. And this person says, took way too long for him to mention this. Please don't give him a platform for this. And that is what it is. We need to stop giving this guy a platform. Like I said at the beginning of this video, most content creators have blocked him on their channels now. He can't even comment on their videos. But this woman is doing this stunt. And he is escalating in what he is doing. The pair of them have just done something that I think is utterly deplorable. I'm only going to read the bottom half of Dingbat's comment there. And he said, yes, I'm mocking many of these true crime content creators who are the ones pushing the real distractions when they really know nothing. Who's pushing the distractions, Dingbat? You're the one that came out early on with your BS stories and is still pushing your BS stories for a distraction. I don't know what your stake is in all this. Unless you are just some sort of jerk who enjoys making mockery of two children who are almost certainly no longer alive. But it is not the content creators who are pushing the distractions. Those distractions are coming from Dingbat, from Janie, from Daniel, and now from this head in the fog woman. And she has the hide to claim that this is not making a mockery of two lost children, it's making a mockery of irresponsible content creators. Let's talk about irresponsible. Irresponsible is putting out this idea of, guess what, there's a story here about a toolbox that is potential evidence. That came directly from her. And then she puts out this video where she's essentially trying to sell a toolbox that she has claimed could potentially be evidence in a case. Doesn't matter whether it is Derwood saying, hey, look, I want $1,000. She is the one that's giving it a platform. She is just as bad as him. Both of them are making a mockery of Lily and Jack with this video, with the discussions that they have had. I really don't know if I've ever seen a content creator act in such an irresponsible way as what this woman has. Well, no, she's probably second to someone else at the moment who's putting out all these hideous rumours about people who aren't even one of the three people that were on the property. Why is it anyone's business, even if the story was true that that guy is putting out about Hayley at the moment? That is nobody's business. And I've already pointed out how unreliable a person that Anita is. So to be spreading all these malicious rumours that have come directly from her, that is irresponsible too. Seems like there are a few people who have come into this case who think they're going to suddenly make it as true crime content creators by doing this sort of BS. Someone needs to remind them that this is about two children. This isn't a game. Now, I'm not going to continue to read through these comments, but I did want to put them up so you could see the sort of things that were being said. Because honestly, this woman has just gone way down in terms of my level of respect for her. Dingbat, I didn't think I could respect him any less than what I already did. But this is the lowest of the low. He's really showing his true colours now. So is this what this case has become? Just about people putting out fake stories, spreading rumours, talking about things that really aren't helping the case. And here's the biggest irony. When these two children first went missing, and we had Joseph Morris coming out, and there's also Sonny and Justin and a few others that had been connected in some way to Summer's case at one point in time. Oh, and of course Michelle after dark. And I made the comment that, we've got the Summer Wells crew on this. And now that wasn't directed at Sonny or Justin or Michelle. That was more about me pointing out that the people that follow them, the other content creators who follow what they are putting out, are the sort of people that turn a case into a circus. And I think Sonny was a little bit upset with me when I mentioned that we had the Summer Wells crowd, because I think she thought it was me criticising her and Justin and that. But it was about the overall effect that we had with Summer's case, because what happened was we had these people come out of the woodwork who were putting out ridiculous videos, starting to talk to just about every man and his dog who lived within like a 50-kilometre radius of where Summer went missing from, just about. I'm over-exaggerating, yes, but essentially that was going on. We had this Jodie Sue Brown or whatever her name was doing these drunken live streams. We had Don Wells doing drunken live streams. And it just became a ridiculous case. People forgot about Summer. And it reached a point where most people just stopped following it, because there was no solid information coming out. There was no solid discussions over anything factual. It was just spreading gossip. And that's what I was referring to when this case first came about, because I could see a number of content creators who had covered Summer's case, and I thought they were going to have the usual hanger-oners tagging along behind them and causing chaos. And the irony is that the people who've been putting out the solid content in this case are the Summer Wells crowd. You want solid content? Then, depending on what sort of style of content you like, you've got Michelle, you've got Justin, you've got Sonny. All experienced content creators who aren't going to put out this sort of BS. And then you've got these other people who are just making this 100 times worse than anything I saw before I stopped following Summer's case. So is this what we want it to be? Do we want to keep Lily and Jack's story out there by just spreading rumours? Because that's not how it works. That's not going to keep that story out there. All that is going to do is attract the people that enjoy the rumours, and it's going to drive away the people who are genuinely in it for the right reasons. And what is going to happen is that within a short amount of time, you're going to have barely anyone talking about this case. Then there's going to be far less pressure for investigators to keep the pedal to the metal and try to get a resolution. As soon as the pressure drops, then there is less need for investigators to feel that they have to really, really push hard to get a resolution. So we need people to stop making a mockery of this case. We need to need people to stop putting out these ridiculous rumours, malicious rumours. We need people to start demanding receipts rather than spreading gossip that comes from some person who has only appeared on the scene on the 16th of February and who's got some sort of major obsession with the Epstein files and is spreading malicious gossip that sounds very much like the sort of things that you would read in the Epstein files, which makes you question if this is just her making up her own little happy little stories. And we have Dingbat making a mockery of things. Why? What is his agenda? There are some truly disgusting people who are attaching themselves to this case. And we need to stop giving them a platform. By all means, discuss what they're saying unless it is malicious rumours. But treat it with a grain of salt. We need to be just talking about things that we can verify. And we need to be actually sharing information with the RCMP rather than saying, oh, well, I get nothing out of it. They're not going to actually give me any information about these tips if I speak to them, so why should I bother? Anyway, that's probably enough of a rant for tonight, but this video just made me so angry, and it wasn't just at Dingbat this time, it was at this content creator. Especially because in her comments, she's turning around and trying to put it back on other content creators when she's the one that started it. She's the one who is allowing Dingbat to make a mockery of the case. Anyway, I'm going to wind it up there. So, thanks for listening. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. That'll get this out there into the algorithm. And please leave a comment below. So, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.